the opportunity, it may definitely it will be a beneficial thing for China. In that way, all these are going to be some irritants in India and Bangladesh relationships, right? Then, so what is India's stand during the crisis? If you see, India's stand is mainly, we said that is completely an internal affair and we are not going to involve in this affair, right? So that is only explicitly, again implicitly India tries to again have a hold on Bangladesh also, right? So then what are the dimensions if you see? First, where our historical ties started from 1971 itself, and in economic domain, if you see, India is the second largest trading partner in entire Asia after China with respect to Bangladesh. And recently we also have signed CAPA, that means Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. That is one type of free trade agreement which will be signed between two countries for more trade. Then we also have infrastructure projects like Akaura Agartala Railway Link. This is in a place in Bangladesh, and you know Agartala is the capital of Tripura. Okay, these two are getting connected using the rail link. At the same time, we also have energy. There is a Rupor nuclear power plant which is being developed by India and Bangladesh. So in this way, we are having energy cooperation also in terms of defense, right? So defense, we have this much border, right? At the same time, we also have different exercises. This exercise Sampriti is the name of the exercise between Indian Army as well as Bangladesh Army. At the same time, we also have exercise Bango Sagar. That means Navy exercise between two countries. Bango means Bangladesh. Sagar means ocean. You can easily connect it with Navy, right? So in this way, we have multilateral cooperation between, sorry, multi-sectoral cooperation between different countries of India and Bangladesh. So when a question is asked about India-Bangladesh relations in mains and of IR, then you have to write in this context only, in different dimensions. How economy is there, what is the status of energy, people to people contacts you can mention, historical ties you can mention, okay? In this way, you have to expand the answer, right? Then, so what are the challenges? As I told you, okay? So if you see, not only with respect to Pakistan, in our immediate neighborhood also, we have different countries which are having different types of problems. First is China, Pakistan. So you know, Pakistan is trying to destabilize India by promoting terrorism, cross-border terrorism and all. At the same time, it is becoming so close to China, and this China is also trying to use Pakistan against India, right? So these are the major problems we are facing from Pakistan. And most importantly, it is also facing economic crisis like Sri Lanka. Recently, it has even taken some loan from IMF and all for its survival and all, right? So that's the state of Pakistan now. And what is this China-Pakistan economic corridor? So this is connecting Xinjiang province of China with Gwadar port of Pakistan, especially Gilgit, not Gilgit, Balochistan province of Pakistan, Xinjiang province. So these two are getting connected using a corridor, and this is part of BRA, Belt and Road Initiative of China. This is a large network of infrastructure project which is connecting Asia with Europe and some country of West Asia also. So under this, we have a corridor called China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. So what is main problem with this corridor is, if you see, this is passing through POK, Pak occupied Kashmir, which India claims as its own, right? So India says this is a sovereign issue because without our permission, how you can enter into that particular area and how you can have a corridor or an energy project, right? So for that reason, India is not accepting this CPEC. Then, if you see Nepal, you know Nepal also, immediate neighborhood, right? So Nepal, see if you have seen the geographical location of Nepal, it is a landlocked country, right? So for its oil or any other thing also, it has to depend on India. That's the traditionally how we have the relation with Nepal, okay? But in the recent times, if you see, again political instability, right? So the present holy government you can call, so KP holy government is there. So that government is always in favor of China. So once if the government is down again, you have some government in favor of India again, some government which is in favor of China. In that way, we are having some political instability also. Then growing economic ties with China, Belt and Road Initiative. So every country of India's neighborhood is trying to get under the influence of BRA because China is trying to lure them in the name of debt. Okay, so these countries are very small countries in terms of economy. So they need some money in the form of credit and all. So China says we will give you the debt of the credit and all, So later you can repay. So because if you see the primary reason why Sri Lanka has fallen into economic crisis is the debt trap of China. Okay, so they have loot by giving the name of debt and all, so which is unpayable. Very high interest rates are there. So because of which China, after COVID-19 also Sri Lanka tourism, that's the mainstay of economy, has fallen down, because of which it couldn't earn money and it could not repay back to China. So that's one of the reason why Sri Lankan economic crisis happened. Okay, so that's the main thing. Then border disputes. So even this particular country of Nepal, it is asking some part of Uttarakhand like Kalapani, Lipu, Lipu Lake, Limpu Dayara. These are the areas which this particular country is claiming from India. So these are actually part of Uttarakhand. They say these are part of Nepal. Lipu Lake, Kalapani, Limpu Dayara. So these are the territories of India which Nepal is claiming. Okay, there also we have recent dispute because recently they have released a currency note and an altered map of Nepal in which they have claimed these areas as their own. Okay, there also India didn't accept this. Then if you say Sri Lanka, again economic crisis is there. Kachativu Island. Okay, so this is very important area where if you see here, if you have Tamil Nadu, and here we have Sri Lanka, here we have Park Strait, right? So here we have a small island called Kachativu. So what is the story of this Kachativu in brief is, so this was not actually part of India or Sri Lanka, right? So in the historical records, it was said that it was part of India only in ancient kingdoms and all. But later on, what actually happened during Indira Gandhi's term is, so there is some maritime cooperation agreement between India and Sri Lanka, which was signed during Indira Gandhi's tenure. So at that point of time, it was said that she has gifted this island, which Sri Lanka has claimed that it is there, and she has gifted this. Okay, so what actually happens is the persons who are going for fishing, especially in the Park Strait, especially Tamilian fishermen, right? So they will stay here for some time. They'll take some rest and all because they don't have any pure water source. Drinking water source is not available in this island. So there are no habitations actually. There is only one church. So they are using this for taking leisure and all, right? So both the countries of again India and Sri Lanka, both fishermen are claiming this area because it is important for their nesting, you can say, right? So for that reason, India says it is India's own territory, but again, Sri Lanka says once you have gifted, it's not yours again. Okay, in that way, this is also one of the border dispute between India and Sri Lanka. Then we have Tamilian issue all the time, right? That has created even the death of Rajiv Gandhi also, LTT issue, Tamilians are in minority in Sri Lanka, right? So that they are not given proper rights. And India is always trying to get the rights guaranteed for Tamilian people in Sri Lanka. Then fishermen issue also, again, because unknowingly, okay, so they'll be crossing the border, right? So they will be arrested by Sri Lankan Navy and Sri Lankan persons will be arrested by Indian Navy. So in that way, it is also becoming a trouble between bilateral relations of India and Sri Lanka. Whenever you write this India and Sri Lanka relations, you need to quote about fishermen. Okay? Then Maldives. Recently what actually happened, right? So initially they said India has to be out. Okay, India out campaign. Recently again, after exhausting all the other options, they're saying again, you please help us or you come to our rescue and all, right? So they asked even Indian military to withdraw from their territory, right? Because again, pro-Chinese government is presently there, right? So that is what actually happened. In Maldives also, China's stand is increasing, India out campaign, and even they have asked for withdrawing all the military. So we even have gifted some helicopters and aircrafts in the previous regime, right? So they don't have that again in their mind. So that's a different story. So in this way, if you see every part of our neighborhood is having some trouble with India because of the main element of China, right? So then Myanmar, if you see, right? In Myanmar, what actually happened? There is no democratically elected government, right? So we have military rule, we call as junta, right? So civil unrest, military coups are quite common. The main issue is Rohingya refugees, right? So Rohingyas are Muslim minority people, okay? So Muslim minorities, especially in the state of Myanmar, which is a Buddhist-dominated country, right? So they generally stay in Rakhine province. This is a state where normally they live in. But what actually happened? Myanmar is not accepting them as citizens. Okay, they're not considering them as citizens, and they has resorted to ethnic cleansing. Ethnic cleansing means mass slaughtering, killing of Rohingyas. So because of that fear, what actually happened? They started migrating into Bangladesh, So in Bangladesh, we have this Cox's Bazar. This is the world's largest refugee camp. Okay, so it will be on the coast of Bay of Bengal, Cox's Bazar. So here, most of the Rohingya refugees are settling in Bangladesh. In some or even crossing the Indian Ocean by some way and that coming into northeastern states. Even in Hyderabad, also we have some population of Rohingyas, right? So that is what the main issue. And increased China presence is also there. Then Bhutan. So Bhutan, if you see, traditionally like Nepal, it also has depended on India because the landlocked the country and all. But in the recent times, it is also trying to diversify its foreign relations. Okay, so it doesn't want only to stay on India. So again, this is Doklam. You know, if you have remembered in 2017-18, we have this Doklam issue, right? Doklam is nothing but an area. So if you see, this is India, Sikkim. Here we have Bhutan. Here we have Tibet of China. So this is a Doklam. This is like a plateau elevated area where all the three countries are trying to claim. Okay, because of which that we also have a border dispute in 2017. So that is also unresolved. Okay, that is one trouble. Then you know Afghanistan, right? So in Afghanistan, if you see, Taliban has returned to power, which is unofficial or you can say undemocratically elected thing and all. So India also have invested. Even Afghan parliament is also constructed by India. Salma Dam we have. So different things, infrastructure projects were taken up by India. So if you see, there is no country with which we have peaceful neighborhood, right? So every country is having some form of trouble. So again, to that list, we have also got Bangladesh in the recent times. That's the final summary of this. So you need to understand all this because when these things are asked, okay, so you need to quote in multiple ways, right? So you cannot only confine to Bangladesh, but you need to mention, although you cannot elaborate this much, this is for your understanding, but you have to mention same type of situation is there in other countries as well, right? Then what is the connection? You know, the national song of Bangladesh, Amar Sunar Bangla, it was also written by our Rabindranath Tagore, right? Who has also given Janagan Mana, right? And if you have remembered, Rabindranath Tagore, his Shantiniketan, right? That was the recent edition of UNESCO's World Heritage Site, right? That was the 41st edition into UNESCO's World Heritage Site. Then, so this is a previous year question asked once in UPSC. So if you see, the question is not geographical question. It was asked in the context of Bangladesh Prime Minister visit to India. At that point of time, main point of discussion is Teesta River dispute because this Teesta River originates in the state of Sikkim. Okay, it is a tributary of Brahmaputra River. It will join Brahmaputra in the country of Bangladesh. Okay, but what actually happens is this is a dispute between Indian state of West Bengal and Bangladesh with respect to water allocation. So because of that dispute at that point of time was so much in news, they have asked that in this form. Okay, that is how you have to interlink current affairs with the starting point. They didn't ask here anything with respect to Bangladesh, but they have taken that context of IR and they have taken this into geography and they have framed a question. This was asked in 2017. At that point of time, this is a major discussion between India and Bangladesh, right? So when we discuss about coalition governments, so what is the advantage is these type of disputes will be coming to the table, right? Why? Because when coalition governments are formed, so you know national governments will take the support of state regional parties and all. At that point of time, Mamata Banerjee is always trying to exert some pressure on the central government because until unless we agree, we cannot settle the Teesta dispute because her interest is also involved, right? That means West Bengal's interest. So in this way, sometimes coalition governments will also have to adhere to the regional issues. This is one such situation. And same situation you can equate with Tamil Nadu's Sri Lankan fishermen also, right? That is one thing. So what is the answer for this? The source of Teesta river is the same that of Brahmaputra but it flows through Sikkim. Is it correct? Keep that aside. Then river Rangit originates in Sikkim and is a tributary of Teesta. This is correct. Teesta river flows into Bay of Bengal on the border of India and Bangladesh. Is this correct? How it is correct? I just now told you this is a tributary of Brahmaputra. If it is a tributary, how it will flow into Bay of Bengal? It has to join Brahmaputra, then it has to flow into Bay of Bengal, right? So that means the statement is incorrect. So if you just know this is a Brahmaputra tributary, see how UPSC have framed the question. Clear? They're not asking you to know this or know this. If you just know this is a tributary of Brahmaputra, then you can easily eliminate option 3. There are 3 options with option 3. This is the answer, right? That is how UPSC will be framing statements. It is you who have to apply that logic, right? So where they're going to test you, the basic idea will be tested. But seeing this option, you think that is very difficult. But it is not required to know this option at all. UPS is asking you to know this because it's a very basic information, right? This is how you have to solve the question. Then, coming to the next topic, we have this Article 370, right? You know, Article 370 was repealed in 2019, right? Abrogated. For what reason? We wanted to integrate Jammu and Kashmir. So this was a temporary provision, right? So which was given for the state of Jammu and Kashmir then. It was now a union territory, right? So why did we give this particular thing? For what reason? Not only for terrorist attacks, because at that point of time when we are about to have our independence and all, you know, British has given us 3 options. Okay, so that means at that point of time British India and princely states, they were given 3 options, whether to join India or Pakistan or to remain independent, right? So at that point of time, you know, some states, almost out of 552, 549 readily joined into India, but 3 have resisted. One is Hyderabad. So you know Nizam tried to join Pakistan. That was also again submersed. You can say that was also not allowed by conducting Operation Polo. We have integrated that into Indian Union. Then we have Junagadh, right? Junagadh is in the state of Gujarat. So there we have the Muslim-dominated population and Hindu ruler. Sorry, no, a Muslim ruler and Hindu-dominated population is there. So they want again it to be in India, but he also wants to join Pakistan. There a plebiscite was conducted. Plebiscite means with respect to geographical dispute or any question, if you have, you can ask the people's opinion and then decide, right? In that way, Junagadh also became part of India. Then the last one we have is Kashmir. So at that point of time, Kashmir is in Muslim majority and Hindu ruler was there, Raja Hari Singh. So he want to be independent, okay, because he doesn't want to join either India or Pakistan. So India has accepted in the beginning, but later on what happened? Pakistan has sent some army, right? So that wanted to capture Kashmir and all the things. Then what actually happened? He came to the rescue of Indian government. He asked, "You try to give us some protection by sending Indian army." So Indian government said, "If you want us to help, then you have to sign some instrument of accession. That means an agreement, okay, accepting that you will be under Indian territory." That is how we have joined Jammu and Kashmir into Indian Union. So at that point of time, we also have, you know, the terms and conditions will be applied. So they said we want our integrity or autonomy. So for that reason, we said except defense, foreign affairs, and communication. All other things will be under your control. These 3 things will be under Indian Union or government control, right? In that way, an instrument of accession was signed. So what we have given, only these 3 things will generally apply from Indian Constitution side to the Jammu and Kashmir. So that means before this Article 370 was repealed, except Article 1 that says India, that is Bharat shall be a union of states, in Article 370, none of the articles will be applied to Jammu and Kashmir, right? If you study any of the old laws, like for example, Wildlife Protection Act 1972, any act which was enacted before 2019, if you read in the very first section, it will be applicable to all the states of India except Jammu and Kashmir because they have their own constitution, they have their own flag, everything, because we have promised their autonomy by giving that instrument of accession. So for that reason, it was given in the form of Article 370. It gave complete autonomy except in 3 affairs, right? Then what actually happened? This was only a temporary provision, right? So later on, this was repealed in 2019 through a presidential order, right? Here you also have to keep in mind about Article 35A of Indian Constitution. This has given special rights to the residents of Jammu and Kashmir, right? So special rights means only the persons of Jammu and Kashmir can buy and sell land and everything in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. That means in that way also we are trying to protect their identity and other things. Okay, so that is how Article 370 has given some independence or you can say autonomy to Jammu and Kashmir. So suddenly what actually happened? So if you are giving lot of independence also, if there is no proper rule or there is no proper control by the government, you know, there is a lot of terrorism or insurgency, and there is everything increasing in a pace that it is becoming a challenge for India in the form of internal problems and all. So for that reason, Indian government thought it is not good, okay, to keep it separate, and it is as a temporary provision. We need to annex, or you can say we need to integrate that into India. So for that reason, recently by passing Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act 2019, we have removed Article 370, revoked Article 370, and we said Jammu and Kashmir will be bifurcated from a state to two union territories of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. Okay, in this way, we tried to solve the problems of Jammu and Kashmir, and this was subsequently challenged because when there is a state with a legislative assembly and a council. At that point of time, even state legislative council used to be there in Jammu and Kashmir. So no political party will be ready for this, right? Because if there is state, they'll have assembly, they'll have everything. But if it is converted into union territory, everything will be controlled by the state itself, center itself, right? So states generally will have autonomy in their own domain, but union territories will always be under control of the central government. Administration will be taken care by center. So president has to pass the laws and everything. So in that way, as a losing autonomy, they'll not accept this. In that way, they have challenged also. But again, in 2023, that means last year, Supreme Court has upheld. There's nothing wrong in revocation of Article 370, and it is done properly only. In that way, present status is it is valid. Okay. So why we are discussing this? Recently on August 5th only, we have completed 5 years of this Article 370 in that context. Okay. So if you see this initial provision, okay, in the drafting, if you see in the drafting of the Indian Constitution, we have a drafting committee, right, headed by Ambedkar, right? So there are 7 members in it. So out of those 7, we have N. Gopal Swamy Iyengar, who was also one of the member. He advocated this Article 370 has to be a temporary provision, right, for the time being, because people want to be independent. Suddenly, if you make them into India, there will be some unrest, there will be some resistance. So after everything gets settled, then you can make it into India. That is what they thought, and they have given in the form of temporary provision, right? Then this article has allowed to have their own constitution. Okay, at that point of time, it is the only state in India to have its separate constitution, separate flag, autonomy, everything. Okay, except in defense, foreign affairs, and communication. Right. So this was given under instrument of accession. Signed. Accession means you are acceding or you are trying to merge yourself with Indian Union by Raja Hari Singh as well as Jawaharlal Nehru. Right. So what is this main Article 370? It was initiated, or you can say this was revoked by Presidential Order of 2019. Okay, so it's not by Parliament Act, just by Presidential Order, because this was not initiated in the Constitution by amendment of the Constitution. So by invoking the President rule, Parliament has assumed. That means now, as the Legislative Assembly is not there, who will pass the laws for Jammu and Kashmir? It is the Parliament, like Union Territory, right? So after revocation, Parliament of India is passing the laws for Jammu and Kashmir. Then if you see, this is a reorganization act that has bifurcated into two union territories of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh, right? So this is what. Then, so what is the Supreme Court judgment? It has upheld what revocation of 370 as well as Article 35A also. Two articles are there, 370 and 35A, right? 35A is giving special rights for the residents of Jammu and Kashmir. Then if you see, why was there is need for abrogation of Article 370? These are the reasons. So there is need for integration. How many years you'll be keeping temporarily only, right? So you need to integrate themselves into India, and development also is not there in Jammu and Kashmir. So it is falling into insurgency and all other things. So at the same time, national security threat is also there, right? And legal uniformity is not there, as I told you. Some laws are only applied, and most of the laws are not applicable to the state of Jammu and Kashmir. To have this legal uniformity and to have political stability also, we have revoked Article 370. Then, what is the impact? Now you have uniformity in laws, reverse here, decline in the violence. If you see the recent attacks, okay, terrorist attacks, if you compare before 2019 and after, there is a decline in the violence, okay, because better monitoring is there now, and there is also electoral participation, right? So people are now coming forward to participate in the elections. So this is what the change we have brought. Then tourism also, right? So if there is some unrest, people will not show their inclination to go towards or to visit Jammu and Kashmir. But now there is some boom in tourism also in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, Union and Territory. Then trade and investments also have increased here. The same time, enhanced infrastructure also. As the government is trying, if you have seen even the Finance Commission also, previously 14th Finance Commission has given 42% has to be given to the states, right? But 15th Finance Commission said it has to be 41%. This rest 1% will go to Jammu and Kashmir, right? So in that way, we are giving more funds also. This is what out of what center earns, how much is the states getting? That means 42 rupees. Okay, so 15 Finance Commission said it will be 41, and 1% of the funds will be going to Jammu and Kashmir. In that way, we are trying to increase the infrastructure and development. Out of 100 rupees center earn, 42 rupees will be given to different states based on their performance. So the rest of the 50, 58 rupees only, no? 58 rupees will be with the center. This is in the normal situation, 14th Finance Commission. But it said no, 41% will go to states, different states here, and 59% will be with the center. Okay, so this 1%, whatever the thing will be there, that will be going to the state Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. Okay, so here 58 only. This is 1% to Jammu and Kashmir. Okay, so this we call it as vertical devolution. Vertical devolution means from center to states, from state to state. Okay, horizontal devolution we call, right? How the states are getting their funds, right? Then who will take care means it will be given to the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. There will be one lieutenant governor, so he will be using that money for all the developmental things and all, right? So center will be dispersing in different installments, you can say, right? Terms. So then, what is the challenge? So if you see the challenge, political instability is still there because after 4 years or 5 years of abrogation, also we couldn't conduct elections in the Jammu and Kashmir Union Territory. Okay, delimitation has been done, but still there are no elections. That is also creating some political instability. Then militancy is also still there, right? You see daily attacks in the state or in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, human right violations, especially AFSPA, Armed Forces Special Powers Act, okay, 1958. What is this act? Normally, to arrest any person or to search, you need a warrant, even by the armed forces or the police, right? But in the areas where this AFSPA is imposed, this AFSPA is mainly imposed to secure your country, right, from internal problems and all. So here, armed forces will be given unlimited powers. So they can arrest anyone without warrant. They can search any premises. Even if they ask you to stop, if you're not stopping, also they can fire against you. That means unlimited powers are given under AFSPA. So this is also implemented in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, at least in some parts, to bring that disturbance under control. Especially in the disturbed areas only, this will be imposed. Okay. So in the name of armed rule and all, so there are allegations that these are persons resorting to rapes, violences, etc. and all. So that also has created some human right violations. Then sixth schedule demand, right? Ladakh from long time is demanding Ladakh, which is also one of the union territory formed after this abrogation of 370. It is asking for sixth schedule status, right? Why they're asking for this? If you know, the presently 4 states are only having sixth schedule protection, right? What are those six? Assam, Tripura, Mizoram, Meghalaya, AMTM, right? So these 4 states only have. So what is the main advantage? No, not only that actually. So if you see generally administration will be under state government, right? Whatever the parliament law that is made, that will be applicable for any state, irrespective of they agree or they don't agree also. But in fifth and sixth schedule areas, they generally don't directly apply. It is the governor who have to apply them until unless he feel there is no threat from this law to the cultural identity of the tribals or anything, then only that will be applied. That means parliament law will not directly apply. It is their culture which is actually dominant. That means to protect tribal and their interests and cultures, we are ensuring that parliament laws also are not prevailing. Their local customs, their culture will be prevailed. In that way, we are trying to protect their tribal identity. Why these people are asking again sixth schedule status? Because once if Ladakh is opening up, Okay, in the name of tourism or anything, outsiders will enter into Ladakh and all, so they will not get the actual benefits of development. So they're asking for more autonomy. Autonomy is the main thing of sixth schedule of Indian Constitution. They have their own self-rule. For that reason, they're asking from long back. And recently central government said we are not granting any sixth schedule status. Okay, that is also one of the challenge, right? So then, what you suggest as a way forward for such issues? What can be the way forward? Always you have to give a optimistic conclusion, right? Not only in the context of sixth schedule, in overall perspective, what you suggest, how to better integrate Jammu and Kashmir into India, or how to solve the problems what we are facing. Inner line permit was actually withdrawn. It is not there now. Right. So we need to increase the pace of development. We need to increase the level of employment and education and all. So these are the things which you need to address. See, you cannot suggest anything which is temporary. As a bureaucrat, you need to identify the root of the problem. That is, they're not having development, they're not having proper education, employment. So if you can address the root of the problem, then definitely there will be all the other things settled, right? In that way, you have to aim at the root of the problem, right? Always you have to suggest the better solution in that way, right? Then then third topic is from economy. So where we are discussing about RBA monetary policy, right? Yesterday, if you have seen, there is a monetary policy committee review, right? So I'm not going into very depth, but first thing you need to know is certain basics. When you read newspapers, which you need to have an understanding. So first is, what is the meaning of the term monetary policy? It is a policy which RBA, being the central bank, takes care by managing the money supply in the economy. So why money supply is important? To keep prices in control and to have economic growth, everything, okay? To have stability in the economy, we need to ensure that money supply is also controlled. Controlling of money supply by RBI is nothing but monetary policy, monetary money supply, okay? So this is one thing. So you need to know there are two types of things, monetary policy and fiscal policy. Fiscal policy is under finance ministry. So where they'll be dealing with taxation related things and all. Here monetary policy will be taken care by the central bank, that is RBI, where they'll be dealing with money supply and all. So how RBI will be taking care about money supply? Not only that, RBI, all those are instruments through banks through loans and they're trying to give money to the public. Okay, so in this way, this is a chain through which RBI is controlling the money supply, right? So, for example, if currently, if you see the main stance of this policy is they're saying we are having somewhat high inflation. They observe. Okay, when there is inflation is nothing but rise in prices. Okay, so there should not be inflation beyond a certain extent, right? There will be some healthy inflation which is between 4 plus or minus 2%. Okay, 4 plus 2, that is 6 is the maximum range. 4 minus 2, that is 2%. That means in the bracket of 2 to 6% only we should have inflation. If it is below 2, it is not good. If it is above 6 also, it's not good, right? So we need to have in that range. So in case if the prices rise more, or if the inflation is reaching 8% or 10%, like what happened in Sri Lanka or Pakistan, any other country, then what RBI will do? Yes. So it doesn't decrease the printing actually currency, but what it will do, it will try to suck out the money, right? So when there is increase in prices, that means people are having more capability to buy more, yes or no? So when they suck out all the money from the public, right? So when there's less money, people will not buy more. So when there is no buying and selling happening, okay, then prices will drop down. In that way, RBI is controlling the money supply. When there is deflation, which is the reverse of inflation, what government or RBI will do? It will try to infuse money. Infuse money in the sense it will give money to the banks. Banks will be giving at a cheaper interest rate to the public. That means when you are giving loans at a higher rates, people will not borrow much. At the time, money is not entering into the economy. When you wanted to infuse money, you will be giving at a cheaper interest, right? So when you're giving at a lower rate of interest, then people will borrow more. In that way, money is entering into the economy. This is how RBI is controlling the money supply, right? So by controlling the money supply, it is keeping inflation as under check, right? So two main goals of RBI is keeping control of inflation. In the same time, they also have to ensure economic growth, price stability, or keeping inflation under control, economic growth. These are the two main objectives of RBI or any central bank in the world, right? So if you see here, especially in RBI, there is Monetary Policy Committee, right? This was created in 2016 on the basis of recommendations of Urjit Patel Committee. He was the former RBI governor, Urjit Patel. So he, being the former RBI governor, before becoming RBI governor only, he has recommended that there should be a committee to decide monetary policy, right? So it was a six-member committee. It is a six-member committee. So this was created under RBI Act of 1934, especially Section 45ZB of RBI Act. Okay, so that was amended to create monetary policy committee. So here it will be having 6 members, out of which 3 will be from RBI, including RBI governor, deputy governor who is in charge of monetary policy, and one other central board director member will be there from RBI. And 3 members will be nominated by central government. 3 from RBI, 3 from central government. So total 6 members. So here if you see, minimum of 4 members, that is a quorum. Quorum means minimum strength to have the meeting, right? So here it is, at least if 3 members is a half, we need to have 4 members. Okay. So to start the meeting and to decide something. Then how the voting will be done? By majority, right? In case if there is no majority, then RBI governor can cast his vote. Okay, tie. In case of a tie, he can cast. So what is the main thing here you have to keep in mind? Okay. Then if you see what RBI governor will do, you didn't get the question. So what is the main role of RBI governor in case of monetary policy committee and all? Casting vote. Okay, that's fine. Then recommend policies you're saying. Okay, then so that means I'm asking whether, for example, if there is 1 member and one RBI governor, so who will have majority, or do everyone have the same value of expression of everything and all? Does governor have any special privilege in expressing certain things, or do we have like this person have a separate right or special right in exercising what he want, or all the members will have equal say in the decision making? Equal, that's what I want. Okay, so RBI governor also will have equal power. Okay, most of the times decision will be taken by majority only, but only in case of a conflict or tie, then only he'll exercise his casting vote. That's it. Okay, so he will not have some superior position or something. So everyone like other person only, he need to vote in the for the first instance, but only in case of tie he'll have that exercise. Okay, so this is what you have to keep in mind. And generally for 4-year tenure, the persons who are nominated by central government, okay, 3 members as I told you, they will have tenure of 4 years. But RBI persons who are there from RBI, 3 persons, they'll have their term co-terminus with their post. That means how many years they'll be there in RBI, till then they'll be members of monetary policy. And once if they're appointed, they cannot be reappointed, right? That's the main thing you have to keep in mind. So why? Because UPSC already have asked a question on monetary policy committee. RBI, banking, monetary policy is a favorite area of UPSC in prelims, right? Most of the questions will be oriented in these areas only. You need to be very thorough here, right? Then, so composition as I told you. Then, what is the main function as I told you is fixing the benchmark rate. What is this benchmark rate? Repo rate, right? What is repo rate? Repo means repurchasing agreement. Okay, repurchasing means what? When banks doesn't have money, okay, when they shortfall money, what they have to do? They'll take money from RBI, right? So what they'll be doing? See here, banks will be taking the government securities and they'll be giving loans to the government, right? So this J6 will be pledged with RBI, and they say, I'll again buy back this J6 from you at a higher interest rate, right? So that difference between buying and selling is a profit for the RBI, right? So they'll be giving, for example, by promising the J6, banks have taken 10 rupees from RBI. Okay. Later on, if they wanted to take back these J6, because the government securities are again, they have to give it back to the government, right? So at that time, these will be charged for 12 rupees or something. This difference will be the profit for RBI, right? So in that way, repurchase agreement is also main thing, right? In case if they're increasing the repo rate, then what actually happens? Banks have to pay more to RBI. Yes or no? The rate at which repo rate is nothing but the interest rate at which banks are borrowing from RBI. Right? If the interest rate is increased, then what happens? Banks have to pay more. That means money available with banks will be less. In that way, RBI will control inflation. Right? When inflation is there, RBI will increase the repo rate. That means they wanted to keep limited money with the banks so that banks will lend limitedly to the public. In that way, money supply is getting very low in the public, right? In that way, they'll be doing. So when inflation is under control, they'll be decreasing the repo rate, right? So in the recent monetary policy committee, if you have seen, just 6.5%, they have left it unchanged only. Okay, so it was not changed in the recent times. Why RBI governor gave a reason is, or as the inflation is still there, okay, we are not trying to decrease the repo rate because food inflation, if you have seen, RBI said there is increase in the food prices, food inflation and all. For that reason, they said we are not going to change repo rate. Okay, in the next monetary policy committee, which is scheduled in the month of December, they said if we have a good monsoon in the coming quarter, then prices will drop down. Then we'll think of decreasing the repo rate. That is the statement which RBI governor has given, right? So when these things happen, you need to study and understand what is happening, right? Then inflation target, as I told you, 4 plus or minus 2%. Okay. So for any three consecutive quarters, quarter means for every 3 months, right? So if there is increase or decrease within this range, okay, then RBI has to explain to the government of India because government is the parent or the owner of RBI, right? So it has to state the reasons why it has failed in controlling inflation, along with what type of measures it is going to take in future to limit inflation. It has to state all this to the parliament, especially the central government, right? So this is what. Then, if you see quorum, as I told you, decision making by majority vote and other things. Whatever the decision that is there, that is binding on the central government. Okay, so the decision will be binding on RBI. So here, that is the main thing. Then repo rate means I told you, it is the interest rate at which central bank lends to the banks. That means banks will borrow at that interest rate from the RBI, right? Repurchasing agreement. They'll have more money. They'll lend more to the public. Uh, that's what. See, inflation has to be in certain range. You cannot ensure that inflation will be zero all the time. There has to be healthy inflation also, right? 2 to 6% is good for the economy. This percent of 2 to 6 will be decided every 5 years based on our economic status and how our economy is growing and all, right? So to a certain extent, we can keep inflation in control. But once if it is crossing 6%, then we need to take some corrective measures, like sucking out the money from the public and all. So here also they're trying to do this. This is always a loop, but you need to ensure certain money also in the market, right, in the public. So anything which is a good monsoon will try to bring decrease in the prices of agriculture commodities, food and all. So that will definitely bring down the inflation. Inflation has to be under certain limit, 2 to 6%. If it is crossing that only, RBI will take some measure. But if it is bringing, like if it is brought down to 6%, then RBI will not again take any measure. It's perfect. Okay, in a healthy condition, you can say, right? Then if you say repo rate, it will decrease. Say if there is good monsoon, agriculture productivity will be good, right? So that means when you have shortage of food grains, there will be rise in prices, right? When you have abundant food or food crops and everything, then why do you have rise in prices? When there is no rise in price, why there will be inflation then? That is what I told you. When RBI governor, what he said is, in next monetary policy by December, if we expect a good monsoon, then I'll decrease the repo rate. If there is a good monsoon, I'll decrease the repo rate. What that is what he said, right? I means not I, monetary policy committee. Okay. So if there is no good monsoon, again that will be the same, right? They may maintain the same or they may increase the repo rate also, right? It depends on that. So repo means pre-purchase agreement, as I told, right? They'll be promising their G6 or government securities, and they'll say we'll purchase again in the future on a better rate, right? So that is the profit for the RBI. So this difference will be the interest, okay, for the RBI. Then what are the objectives of repo rate? So if you see all the time, RBI will be keeping repo rate in consideration to decide how much money supply should be there in the economy. What type of inflation will be monitored? It is CPI inflation. CPI means consumer price index. That means inflation not at the wholesale level, but inflation at the retail level or the consumer level. Okay, CPI combined. This will be monitored by RBI, and this has to be within the range of 2 to 6%. Okay. So if you see any time in the newspaper, retail inflation, that is what the RBI monitored inflation. Okay. We have another type of inflation, that is WPI, wholesale price index. This is at the wholesale level. So this is not considered by RBI when it is taking care about the monetary policy. Okay. It's the consumer price index which will be taken into consideration, because it is the people who are buying at this rate. So if you want to understand what is the current level of inflation, you need to focus on CPI only, right? CPI, repo rate. These two will be considered mainly by the Monetary Policy Committee to understand what is the level of inflation in the economy and to take corrective measures, right? So what is the objective? Controlling money supply, as I told you. If increased money, if there is increase in the repo rate, that means reduced money supply in the economy, right? Yes or no? If there is increase in the repo rate, that means banks have to pay more to RBI. If banks are paying more, they'll lend less to the public. Public will be having less money with them. That is what they're controlling. Managing inflation. If they're having less money, people cannot buy more. Inflation will be brought under control. Then ensuring the financial stability. Inflation is good to a certain extent, but if it is crossing beyond a certain extent, definitely it will hyperinflation, galloping inflation, creeping inflation. Like this, you will be studying different types of inflation in economy. That's not good. Okay, creeping inflation is fine. Hyperinflation is not good. Okay, when it is increasing by 10%, 15%, and all, it may trouble the entire economy. Right, so that is not good. Then what is the impact on the economy? If you are increasing the repo rate, okay, then what happens? Banks have to pay more. That means when they have to pay more, they increases the interest rate, right? So in that way, there will be impact on the interest rates also, right? Then investment also. If there is increased interest rate, then will people try to take more and invest? No. So that will again bring down the investment. If investment is less, consumption also will be less. In that way, this is all having indirect or direct linkage, right? Clear so far? As we have limited time, I'm not discussing about the other tools of monetary supply. Okay. So in other classes when we get time, we'll discuss in detail, right? Then what is the meeting outcome? If you see, right? So in the meeting outcome, they said repo rate is kept unchanged at 6.5%. Okay. So to the reverse, we have reverse repo also. What is this reverse repo? Repo means, I told you, the rate at which banks are borrowing from RBI. Reverse repo means, yes, banks when they have profit or they have excess money, they'll park their surplus with RBI, where RBI is paying interest rate for the surplus. Okay, so because when banks are having extra money, they'll keep that extra money with RBI. RBI has to pay interest to the banks. It is the reverse case of repo, right? So this is now at 6.25%. Generally, reverse repo will be always less than repo rate. Okay. If that is not the case, again, banks will not lend money. Okay. Then inflation forecast. Okay. They're expecting that inflation will decrease to, currently it is around 5.5 or 5.6. We're expecting to decrease it to 4.5%. CPI inflation. Okay. Then GDP growth is expected to be 7.2% for financial year of 25. Then RBI monetary policy is saying domestic growth, if you see, compared to other countries, it is stable, right? So in the recent budget also they said it is an exception of shining example and all. In that way they said, right? Then withdrawal of accommodation stand. If you see, generally RBI, when it announces the monetary policy decisions and all, it will give different stances. Accommodation stance, withdrawal and all. Accommodation means what? When they wanted to decrease money supply. Okay. When they decrease money supply, what is the main objective? To keep inflation in control, right? That means if they are resorting to accommodative stance, that means they wanted to decrease inflation. If they're announcing accommodation, the policy of accommodation means they're trying to decrease money supply in the economy by increasing the repo rate. Okay, if that is done, that means you need to understand it is accommodative stance. Okay, so expansionary policy, accommodative stance, hawkish, dovish, we will be having different stances of RBI. Among that, they said we are going to withdraw this in future. Okay, but present we have kept it unchanged, right? Then why did this decision to keep this policy rate unchanged is for the reason food inflation is there still. At the same time, headline inflation is also there. So in inflation, as I told you, CPI and WPI are at the level where you are calculating at the consumer or wholesale level. But we also have based on the categories, headline and core inflation. Headline means if you include all the items, like including volatile items like food and fuel, we call it as headline inflation. But if you exclude most volatile things or food and fuel, right? If you exclude them, we call it as core inflation. If you include them, we call it as headline inflation, right? So as these two are still prevalent in the economy, RBI said we are not going to change the repo rate. Okay, is that clear concept of repo rate? Then next topic is from environment, ozone, right? There is a recent study by okay. So there is a recent study by CSC, one of the research organization or think tank you can say. So it said recently the ozone levels in the environment are increasing. So you know ozone is in two forms, good ozone and bad ozone, right? You know there are 5 layers of atmosphere, right? You have troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, exosphere, right? We have this. In stratosphere, there is one good ozone which is protecting us from harmful UV rays, right? That is what good ozone. But there is also one ozone in the form of pollutant which is there in the troposphere, right? That means if there is ozone in the troposphere or the ground level, we call it as a pollutant, which is a bad ozone, which is harming us, right? So it is a secondary pollutant. What is the difference between primary pollutant and secondary pollutant? Primary means which is directly released into the environment. Secondary pollutants are formed by reactions of primary pollutants. Okay. So here what actually creates ozone is not directly emitted by anything. Okay. For example, if you burn certain things, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide emissions are released. That is primary pollutant. But ozone is formed from nitrous oxide emissions, NOx. NOx means nitrous oxide. Plus volatile organic compounds will be there in presence of sunlight. If these two react, that is creating ozone, okay, which is a ground-based pollutant or harmful pollutant, right? So this level of ozone is increasing, which is an alarming sign, and it is found it is high in Delhi. You know, Delhi is most populated, sorry, not populated, polluted capital in the world. For the fourth time, we have created a record, right? Worst ever polluted capital in the world for the fourth time. You can understand. Every winter, you'll be seeing how much is the pollution in Delhi and all, right? So that is the main problem here. So that was also found in the recent study. So what actually happens is ozone, as I told you, to form ozone you require sunlight, right? Okay, that means compared to the winters, during summers, this ozone as a pollutant will be very high in concentration. But in the recent study, it was found that even during night time also there is more presence of ozone. For that, what is the reason? Increase in the temperatures or in the form of radiations and everything. So that also has created ozone, which is even having its existence during the night time. Okay, not only during the summer or sunlight. Then if you see, this is the context. Okay, so Delhi is also the most affected one, and ozone levels are even elevated at the night time. And if you see, summer is a peak season for ozone, as I told, because hot weather along with sunlight will be there, which is converting that nitrous oxides and volatile organic compounds into ozone, right? Then if you see, This ozone generally travels for longer distance. That is why it is not easy to degrade in the environment. For that reason, we need to take certain measures also. So if you see ground level pollution, one main thing is stratospheric ozone is good for you or the environment, where you have ozone layer depletion, we call it. So for that we have two protocols again. Montreal Protocol, Vienna Protocol, Vienna Convention, right? So 1985 Vienna Convention, under which we have Montreal Protocol. Convention is a broader thing, okay? Under convention, which is having one area of influence, you can say, we have a specific target to fix, that is protocol, right? So under convention, we'll have protocols. Vienna Convention 85, under which we have Montreal Protocol of 1987, which is trying to phase out all the ozone depleting substances. Ozone is actually depleted by harmful substances like CFCs, HCFCs, okay? So chlorofluorocarbons, hydrofluorocarbons and all, so which are released from the air conditioners, refrigerators, aerosols, etc. So they are depleting the stratospheric ozone, which is good, okay? But recently, if you have seen, ozone is recovering. That's a good sign because we have phased out all these, okay? And we are trying to use other things instead of these. Again, accidentally we are using HFCs. So instead of these are not ozone depleting, but they are causing global warming, right? So again, we need to have an alternative for these also. In that way, we are trying to stop ozone depletion in the stratosphere, which is good for us. But what actually happened is tropospheric ozone is increasing, which is not good for us, right? So bad ozone. So this is a secondary pollutant, as I told you. This is very important. You need to keep it in a preliminary examination. They can ask you here, right? It's not a primary pollutant. Then what is the impact of ozone? Human health, okay? So when ozone is released, okay, so different types of cancer, lung problems are common, right? Then environment, if you see, as I told you, being a pollutant, it can degrade, okay? It may harm the environment also. And crops, if you see, okay, crops productivity is also decreasing in the presence of ozone, which is a pollutant. So these are the impacts. Then if you see, these are the main air pollutants, okay? Common air pollutants. Sometimes UPSC may ask, already it have asked, so from which particular processes this particular pollutant is getting released, okay? So they're giving certain conditions or certain categories from which they're asking from which of these this particular thing is released and all, right? So if you see here, we have ozone also, right? And you have to keep in mind, there is one organization called CPCB, Central Pollution Control Board, which is a statutory body, right? Statutory means established by Parliament law under Water Act of 1974. It was initially established under Water Act, but then you can ask, if it is Water Act, how it is dealing with air pollution, right? Later, it was also given powers under Air Pollution Air Act of 1981. Okay, that means presently Central Pollution Control Board will take care about air pollution and water pollution, right? So for controlling air pollution, it has released one index called Air Quality Index. If you see in the newspapers, okay, there will be one column given based on colors. So what is the level of pollution in a particular city and all, right? So AQI we call Air Quality Index. In this, if you see, there are 8 pollutants covered, right? What are those 8? So these are the 8 pollutants covered under AQI. Okay. So PB means lead. Okay. PB means lead. PM 2.5, particulate matter 2.5 diameter, right? PM 10. These are the particulate matters, very fine, even thinner than your hair, right? Then carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide, ozone, ammonia. So these are the 8 AQIs. Already UPSC have asked a question. Okay, you need to know what are included under AQI, what are not there. So these are the areas which you need to focus and remember, right? Ozone is covered under AQI, right? Then what are the recent steps taken by Government of India to combat air pollution? This is the most common area where a mains question can be asked, okay? And important for prelims also. National Clean Air Program, right? Clean air, right? If you have seen, recently Supreme Court also have expanded the ambit of Article 21, saying a person who is having right to life, he also have right to have clean air, clean environment also, right? So in that context, if you see, this was launched by Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change in the year 2019. So what is the main objective here? By launching this program, they said 2017 will be the base year. Okay, compared to 2017, as they started in 2019, 5-year target 2024. Okay, in this 5 years, comparing with the pollution which is there in 2017, we wanted to decrease at least 33% of the particulate matter. Okay, that means what type of particulate matter, how much is the quantity that is released in the form of PM 2.5 and PM 10 in 2017. Compared to that, at least 33% we have to decrease between this 5 years. For that reason, we have launched National Clean Air Program, right? So this is also trying to reduce the pollution. Then BS6, Bharat stage emission norms, right? So you know BS4 to BS6. Currently, everyone, I think most of them are using BS6. Okay, vehicle pollution related stage norms. Okay, so here the exhaust, whatever the vehicle exhaust is there, that is when you progress in the stages, you can say there will be lesser emissions released into the environment, right? There is no BS5. We have directly shifted from BS4 to BS6, right? So these are based on European standards. So this was actually introduced in India in 2000. BS1, BS2, 3, we have 4, then 6 we have, right? So this is what, in 2020 only we have announced this BS6 norms. Then Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana for promoting LPG cylinders, right? So instead of LPG, if you use firewoods and all, you know, when you burn them, again pollution, again the health of the woman is also getting polluted, right? So for that reason, to promote LPGs, we have this Ujjwala Yojana. Then FAME scheme, faster adoption and manufacturing of electric vehicles. FAME, okay, faster adaptation and manufacturing of electric vehicles, a very important scheme of Ministry of Heavy Industries. Generally, people get confused here because when UPSC generally asks any scheme or program, they'll ask the nodal ministry also. It is Ministry of Heavy Industries. It is not Ministry of Environment, not Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. As it is electric vehicle, we generally get confused with new and renewable energy, but it is heavy industries, right? They're trying to promote by giving subsidies electric vehicles, right? That is a main initiative. Then if you see, next topic we have is disaster management, okay? So you know in India we are prone to different types of disasters, right? Terrestrial we have, then what type of disasters we have? Terrestrial, earthquakes, cyclones, all these are common, right? So in India, based on some seasons we have, and some are certain, so that means sudden we have, right? So in India, if you see disaster management as a subject, okay, this forms under residuary list. I think you know what is residuary list. Okay. So you know everything falls under three lists, right? Union list, state list, concurrent list, right? So union list means parliament only can have the power to enact law, state list, and you know concurrent means both. But if any subject is not falling in either of the three, then we call it as residuary list. Okay. So who is having the power again? Parliament will have the power to legislate on that. Okay. So using that power, Parliament has passed Disaster Management Act of 2005. Okay, so National Disaster Management Act (NDMA) we call, right. So this was getting amended by this particular bill. This was recently tabled in Lok Sabha, right. So why? Because you know there is more intensity in the disasters, and the current mechanism which is there under NDMA, that is not sufficient. So we are trying to amend certain provisions of NDMA 2005 in the form of new bill. So it is very much important because you need to know about disaster management. Okay, certain questions will definitely be asked. So first thing is why we are again amending here. If you see, for effective pre-planning. Okay, so you know disasters, once if they happen, we cannot do much, right? But we need to have preparedness. So in case if a question is asked anytime in mains, you have to write preparedness, risk reduction, mitigation, adaptation. These are the terms which you have to frequently use in disasters and all, right? Because you need to be prepared. You need to create some awareness. You need to create some mock drills and all, right? So because after disaster, there won't be nothing you'll be doing, right? So you have to create some awareness, preparedness and all. For that reason, we are amending this bill, right? So if you see disaster preparedness, okay, they're also trying to diverse the roles and responsibilities. This is to amend 2005 Act, NDMA, National Disaster Management Authority Act of 2005. That is getting amended. Okay. Then if you see what is the first feature is they're going to create a database. Okay, database means they're going to store all the data. Right. For example, if the recent Wayanad landslide, if you see, right, so they'll be storing all this data in future, right? So they'll be using how, for example, if you'll be seeing anytime in disasters, certain examples will be there, so which have minimized the loss of people or the property and all by using technology and all, right? For that reason, certain things will be stored in the database so that next time if we have such disasters, we can be better prepared and we can have some awareness about it. Okay, so that's the main thing. So with respect to mitigation, assessment, fund allocation, okay, so this data will be stored. Then most important thing is they'll be preparing a disaster plan. Who are going to prepare? It is NDMA, National Disaster Management Authority. This authority was created under NDMA Act. Okay, that means it is a statutory body, right? Who is going to head this? Directly the Prime Minister of India. Okay, STMS will be headed by chief ministers. Okay, so these are statutory bodies who are having the central authority over disaster management at the central level, state level, right? Then if you see, these are getting replaced. Previously we have National Executive Committee and State Executive Committee who used to prepare the disaster related plans and all, but now we are replacing them with NDMA and STMAs, right? So that is a major change. So every 3 years and every 5 years there will be review and update. Then if you see, they are going to create a urban disaster management authority for specially state capitals and other cities other than Delhi and Chandigarh. These are the two cities which are exempted. They can frame a statement. It is applicable for all the cities in India. No, it is only applicable for state capitals and other major cities excluding Delhi and Chandigarh. They are not applied to these two. Okay. Then that means why? Because Delhi is under the state list, right? So normally in state list we have land, police and public order, right? But in Delhi, being national capital territory, that is under the central list. Okay, so certain things are directly under the control of parliament. Okay, so here the state doesn't have much role, so that they were exempted. And Chandigarh being a union territory combined of Punjab and Haryana, so they didn't give that to the state, they have kept it with the center, right? Then generally if you see urban areas or local areas, immediately who have to take the responsibility? State. But for Delhi and Chandigarh it is a center anyhow, right? That is the reason they have exempted. Then statutory recognition. So there is this National Crisis Management Committee and High Level Committee. For them they are giving the statutory status. Okay, so executive committees you can say in cases of crisis and all. And till now we have only NDRF, National Disaster Response Force, right? So if you have seen in the Wayanad also we have seen, right? So army, paramilitary forces will be forming NDRF and all. There is no concept of SDRF, but the bill is proposing to create state disaster response force also. For every state, there will be some response force like NDRF. Then a new section 60A is getting added to Disaster Management Act of 2005, where they are going to increase some penalties and punishments for the persons who are trying to obstruct, okay, in disaster management related activities, or if they're not helping the government, okay, in the way, or if they're hurting, if they're doing anything wrong in case of disaster mitigation and anything, they're going to impose certain penalties and punishments. For that, they have increased this. Then, how this particular bill is going to help in disaster management? Because now it has strengthened the roles and responsibilities of NDMA. They have also given statutory recognition to High Level Committee and Crisis Management Committee. At the same time, they have created a database, Urban Disaster Management Authority. In this way, they're trying to strengthen the framework, institutional framework. If you have a strong institutional framework, then you can monitor the disasters better, right? So for that reason, we can say this is a good sign, right? Because in the vagaries of climate change, when they're increasing, definitely there will be more disasters in future, right? To withstand those, we need to have a strong, robust mechanism or institutional framework which is supportive, right? In that context, you have to suggest this would help us, right? Then, so what are the features of this Disaster Management Act of 2005? Okay, this is actually getting amended. No, as I told you, there will be one authority. Three main things: NDMA, National Disaster Management Authority, headed by Prime Minister of India, right? NDRF, National Disaster Response Force, Response Fund also will be there. Fund, okay. So fund also will be there. So three-tier structure, NDMA, SDMA, DDMS. District collector will be the head of district level disaster management committee, right? This is the disaster response force who will conduct that evacuation and everything, and response fund will be there, right? So if you see recently, Kerala also asked this landslide to be recognized as a national disaster, right? Sometimes they're asking heat waves to be listed as notified disaster. So what actually happens is, if that is notified as a disaster or national disaster, then NDRF money also will be given to the states, right? So this fund, okay, certain money will be kept in NDRF, okay. So if states are exhausted, they'll have certain money with them, right? But that money will not be sufficient to provide all the compensation ex gratia, right? So at that point of time, if they want help from the center, they have to be notified as disasters by the central government. That is why the last, please recognize this as national disaster or notified disaster, so that they can have more funding from the center, right? That is the use of NDRF. And then next topic also related to environment again, centered over Wayanad landslide only, you can say. So conservation of Western Ghats. So what actually has caused this Wayanad landslide? Deforestation, right? So during monsoons, generally landslides will be most common, right? Landslides are nothing but mass movement of rocks or debris under the influence of gravity, right? So that's quite common in normal monsoon season and all. But if there is more increased rate of deforestation, right? How deforestation can prevent, or afforestation or having forests can prevent the landslide? Very good. Right. The roots will be keeping the soil intact, right? So they don't allow that to flow when there is harsh rain or even severe rain and all, right? So this landslides will be prevented if you have good forests or plants or trees, right? So, but if you're cutting down indiscriminately, then what happens? Soil will be loose. There will not be anything that is captured or in the form of trees and other things. So that is how it is creating, or it is easily increasing the intensity of landslides, right? So if you see already Western Ghats, which is an ecologically sensitive region, right? Because Western Ghats have a lot of diversity, right? And most of the rainfall is also there. Evergreen forests we have at the same time. Alluvial type of forests also soil also we have, right? So when these situations we have ecologically sensitive area, we need to protect it, okay, but in the name of development, okay. Always here, if you say this concept is centered over, you should have either economic development or environment. So in this debate, okay, so state governments will always favor economic development, okay, but to sustain we need to have environment also protected, right? So what actually happened? So for us, when we are increasing in population and we want our demands to be fulfilled, right? So we need to cut down forests, right? So when we want these things to happen, especially in ecologically sensitive area like Western Ghats, so once what happened in 2011 is, central government at that point of time has constituted Madhav Gadgil committee. Okay, so Madhav Gadgil committee was constituted in 2011. That committee said, okay, so as Western Ghats is ecologically sensitive and important and fragile area, at least 75% of Western Ghats have to be kept as ecologically sensitive area. Okay, once if you demarcate it as ecologically sensitive area, you cannot allow any human activities inside that area. Okay, it has to be kept entirely for conservation. That means if you are keeping entire 75% of Western Ghats under conservation, where you will be using the forest and how you will be fulfilling all your needs and all, right? So state governments will not accept this, because if they do development only, they'll be voted upon again, right? So for that reason, none of the state governments have agreed, right? If they don't agree, center also will not agree again, right? So for that reason, again another committee was constituted. This time it is Kasturi Rangan, right? So Kasturi Rangan committee has recommended, because he very well know, although he supported initially 75%, if he suggests the same thing again, will that be accepted? No. So that is why he reduced it to half. He said only 38% can be reserved as ecologically sensitive, and other areas you can grow for development. That's the main reason why we have the Wayanad landscape. Now the people are happy, because large tracts of forest land is available for the development and all, but these things will not be ignored, right? So, right, if you recognize in the name of national disaster, what you will be getting? Only funds. After having loss, you're having fund. That's not the main problem, right? You need to prevent certain things, not curing. Curing is never the solution. You need to prevent it, right? Prevention can happen only when you are demarcating it as ecologically sensitive area, right? But the people will not agree. People want money, employment opportunities, and everything. States also want them to be voted on, right? So for that reason, this things will happen. If you see in 2018-19 also, Kerala was suffering from huge floods and all. Once if it is case of Kerala, next time it is the case of Chennai, Mumbai. Every time if you see one of the city, Hyderabad also we have suffered 2020 if you have remembered. Hyderabad also urban floods we have, right? So that's what actually happens. That's what he said, the same thing also. If you could have done the same thing which I told way back, this would not happen, right? See, Western Ghats, that is also in the area where it is receiving annual rainfall of more than 200 centimeters, right? So when it is in the range of high rainfall area, definitely landslides are more, right? So if landslides are more, you need to take certain measures, but still you ignored those measures, because of which this much of loss. You don't know even the governments are underestimating the deaths, right? So there is lot of people who have actually died during that Kedarnath floods also in 2013 also. So many people washed away. But government cannot say, like, if it is happening in thousands and lakhs also, they will say only 10,000 or 5,000, because if that much loss happened, it is against the government only, right? So they'll ignore generally, they'll say the less number as the deaths, right? That has also happened. Completely 2, 3 villages have washed away, right? So that's the main problem here. Okay. First thing you need to understand, see here, where is this location? This is all Western Ghats, right? So if you see here in Kerala, this is the area where Wayanad is there. It's not even on the coastal area, right? But still you can understand how much is the rainfall they have. Wayanad as a region, they receive more rainfall also. At least they have to be sensitive to the ecological things and all. At least they have to be cautious. So if you are settling in a hilly area, definitely landslides will be more. You need to settle in an area which is safe for you. At least you have to think about it also, right? So these were all ignored. So if you see, Western Ghats is expanded in 6 states of India. This was a question asked in 2018. Okay, 17 or 18 they've asked this question. In how many states Western Ghats is there? Right, 6. What are those 6? Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Goa, Maharashtra, Gujarat. Okay, 6 states. So which state has highest percentage of Western Ghats in it? Karnataka, right? Karnataka has highest. So what is the highest peak in Western Ghats? Anaimudi. Anaimudi is the highest. Okay. Nilgiri is the meeting point of Eastern Ghats and Western Ghats. In Nilgiris you have Dodabetta, that is the highest, right? Then so if you see what actually happened after this Wayanad landslide, now the government of India, because it again cannot see, if that is the BJP ruled state, they definitely would not have announced something bad, right? So because it is in the opposition ruled state and all, and it is also the primary constituency of opposition, leader of opposition, they have made it more political, right? That should not have been done. Okay, so because it is Rahul Gandhi's constituency and all, lot of politics got involved. When people have died, they should not bring politics into this, right? So I'm not taking one side. Both of the parties all tried to blame, but it is the people who actually suffered, right? So that's the thing. After this Wayanad landslide, what they have done is they have released a draft notification saying that in the ecologically sensitive area, all human activities will be banned. After the disaster, whatever the things you do, will that stop? This is only a draft. Keep in mind. This is like an eye wash, right? So in future, this will not be implemented. I promise. After 4 or 5 years, definitely another disaster will be there. You all, by the time I wish that you'll all be in the disaster management field as an administrator, and some other persons will be there here. They'll also will be studying about this disaster. So, okay, this is what actually happens in Indian politics, right? So they're saying now the draft is issued. What is the reason now of issuing the draft and everything? There's no purpose now, right? So that's the main thing. So if you see Western Ghats, these are parallel to the western coast of India. If you have Western Ghats, here you have Arabian Sea, here you have Western Ghats extended like this, right? So you know the concept of conventional rainfall, right? So orographic rainfall is the main reason why Western Ghats receive more, right? So when the mountains are blocking the winds, okay, so they're forced to raise up, so they'll shed all the rainfall here. This side will remain dry, leeward side, rain shadow region we call. That is why this belt of Western Ghats receive more rainfall, greater than 200 centimeters of rainfall, right? That's the main thing. Then, if you see, please be silent. This is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Okay, so and it is also one of the biodiversity hotspot of 36 or there in the world. Out of 36, this is one of them. Right? In India, we have 4 biodiversity hotspots. Out of 4, Western Ghats is one. Other 4 are we have Eastern Himalayas and Western Himalayas. 2. We have Indo-Burma is third one. Sundaland is the fourth one. Okay, Western Ghats we have. Okay. Eastern Himalayas and Western Himalayas is one. Indo-Burma is another one. And you have Sundaland. Sundaland is nothing but areas of Sri Lanka, Indonesia, and Andaman and Nicobar of India was even having under this Sundaland only. That is why we call it 4. Here you have the left one is Western Ghats. Okay, these are the 4 biodiversity hotspots. Hotspot is an area where there is more biodiversity. Okay, so these were recognized by Conservation International, one of the organization. So according to that, there are 36 entirely in the world, but out of 36, we have 4 in India. One of them is Western Ghats. So here you have to keep in mind 6 states are covered under Western Ghats. Then if you see key features, okay, of the draft, okay, you need not remember anything from the draft. Okay, rarely they'll ask a question until unless it was accepted. So complete ban on mining, quarrying, and sand mining. Okay, then yes, quarrying mining is when you dig from the area. Okay, quarrying means when you cut down the stones and everything, right? So granite and everything quarrying we call, right? Then phasing out of existing mines. So whatever existing mines are there, they will be phased out within 5 years. That's the timeline. And all new expansion projects of building, construction of certain built-up areas, they also will be prohibited in future. Okay, so this is what the draft. You need not remember, but this is important. Okay, in 2010, this Madhav Gadgil committee was constituted to look into the conservation efforts. As I told you, in 2011 they have given the report saying that at least 64%. Maximum they said is 75, but you know, minimum of 64% should be brought under ecologically sensitive area. Right? That means once if it is notified as ESA or ecologically sensitive area, no developmental activity can be done. Human habitations also will not be allowed to settle there. Right? Then after this, you know, all developmental activities have to stop. ES1 means core area. Z2 is somewhat transition area, buffer area like that we have, right? So if you see, they also have suggested to have a authority which will actually established under Environment Protection Act of 86 will actually manage which type of ecology and which type of activity should happen or should not happen. Okay. Then also said there should not be any growing of commercial crops. Commercial crops like, you know, in Kerala and all we have rubber, palm oil, all these things, right? Spices and all. So all these commercial crops. So to have commercial crops, you know, plantations we call, large tracts of forest will be cleared, right? For that reason, they said complete ban should also be there on this, but it was ignored. Then after this, we have Kasturi Rangan committee because he said 64% minimum should be there, right? That is why that committee recommendations were not accepted. This was constituted again. He said only 37% of the area has to be accepted. Okay. For that reason, if you see, it was accepted. Okay, more of the less you can see. He said some cultural areas. Cultural means where people can be allowed to settle, and natural areas where humans will not be allowed to settle. In that way, we have to demarcate the area. At the same time, he said cultural lands or ecologically sensitive areas. Okay, so they will be demarcated. And he said red, orange, and green. Red means there will be complete ban on certain activities like mining and all other things. Orange means medium, you can say. Green means grow. Okay, so agriculture, horticulture, naturally sustainable activities will be allowed in green category. So in that way, he said these type of activities will be allowed and certain activities will not be allowed. Right? In that way, the recommendations were majorly accepted. Then coming to prelims related issues, okay, we have this animal is clouded leopard, right? This is a state animal of Meghalaya. Okay, so a type of leopard only, but a clouded leopard we call small type of leopard. So see when we come across this different types of species or animals or plants, okay, which are in use because of some reason. Just Google out their image, okay. Once if you see their image, you'll remember it for long, okay. Just don't read it and close it, okay. Visualize it. Visualize means it will help you to remember for long, right? What is the context here? Mizoram governor, okay. So on the occasion of Cloud Leopard Day, he said we need to better conserve this, okay. So when any person who is mainly in the again constitutional post and all, if they take some effort or pay attention to certain things, that will be important, okay. So if you see the habitat of clouded leopard, it is in the Himalayan areas, evergreen forests also we have this type of animal. So first is it is a wild cat, okay, in the dense forests of Himalayas, extended from northeastern India. Mainly in northeastern India we have this clouded leopard, right? So if you see habitat Southeast Asia and Himalayas, in all these countries we have, especially in India we have in these states, okay, northeastern states you can say, including West Bengal, and it is a state animal of Meghalaya, right? It mainly lives in evergreen forests, tropical forests also, mangroves, you know, right? Mangroves will be there on the coastal areas as shelter belts, right? In high altitudes in Himalayas also, this will survive. So if you see conservation status, it is vulnerable in IUCN Red List, okay? In IUCN is nothing but International Union for Conservation of Nature. There will be different conservation status. So we have critically endangered, vulnerable, least concern. We have extinct in the wild is the first. Okay. So if you see, whichever the animals that got extinct in the wild in the sense naturally. Okay. So those we call as Asiatic cheetah that got extinct, right? So that we can see. Critically endangered means they're in a serious threat. Okay. If you don't conserve that particular animal, they may become extinct. So next one is endangered. Then we have vulnerable. Like this, we have certain red list. Okay. So here this is under the category of vulnerable. Okay, that means if you don't protect it, it may become endangered, then critically, then extinct. Okay, in that way, right? Then we have this Rashtriya Vignan Purashkar Awards. Why I have taken this topic is, for the first time we have given space sector related awards. Okay, so far you have heard about science awards and anything, but for the very first time we have given space related awards also in India. This is the very first time, right? So for whom it was awarded? For the Chandrayaan 3 team, okay, who are involved in Chandrayaan 3. You know, Chandrayaan 3, okay, with that we became the very first country to land on the southern pole of the moon, right? So we are the fourth country to soft land on the moon. Soft land means without any crash, we have landed, okay? We are the fourth country to do. South pole of the moon is the very first time, okay? So Chandrayaan 3, southern pole of the moon. Okay, southern pole. China's Chang'e mission, it has far side of the moon. Okay, so if you see if this is Earth, okay, all the time will be exposed to this part of the moon only. Whichever the moon that is not visible is called far side of the moon. So China's Chang'e 6 mission has landed on the far side of the moon. That is the very first country, and we, the first country to land on the southern pole of the moon. Don't get confused. They may confuse here, right? Because we are two countries. Again, we have launched two missions which are very first time in the world, right? What is difference between Chandrayaan 2 and 3? Chandrayaan 2 crash landed, right? So it had a lander and rover, right? Orbiter we had sent in Chandrayaan 2 only. That orbiter is still functioning. That is why in Chandrayaan 3 we didn't send an orbiter. Orbiter means which orbits around the moon. That is still working. That is the reason in Chandrayaan 3 we only sent lander and rover. Once if it lands, rover comes out. Rover is nothing but a robot, okay, which normally carries experiments, it collects some samples and all, right? That's the main thing. In Chandrayaan 4, we are trying to bring back samples from the moon the same time. We are also aspiring to send some humans to land on the moon also, right? That is expected to be launched in 2040 or something. That's the target Prime Minister has given, but again it will be extended later on. That's the thing. So first thing here, this first time, very first ever, you have to keep in mind. UPSC have this tendency of asking certain awards also, right? Sometimes sports related awards are also asked. Previously they have asked Indira Gandhi Peace Prize. These type of awards also were asked, okay? So if you see, first ever Rashtriya Vignan Purashkar, space related awards were given to whom? ISRO's Chandrayaan 3 team, right? So first recipient, the name is important, okay? Govindarajan Padmanabhan, right? Then fields is whoever strives in science, technology and innovation, for them This awards will be given. Selection, there will be one committee. That committee again from the government of India will recommend, especially it is headed by principal scientific advisor to the Prime Minister, one person who will advise in science domain. One will be advising in economic affairs and all like that we have certain persons. So they will be advising to the government. Okay. Then so what is eligibility? Okay, so the eligibility is also important. Not only the persons who are working in the government, private, any person who is abroad also can be eligible, but they have to strive for excellence in science and technology, innovation, etc. Okay, so even Indians who are staying abroad also are eligible. This can be a trap. Okay, not only government persons, private also. Then, when is National Space Day celebrated? These type of questions can be asked. 23rd August. National Science Day is February 28th. National Technology Day, May 11th. Why May 11th? That is the day when we have tested Pokhran 2 nuclear test. 1998 May 11th. Second test of Pokhran. Okay. The name of that operation is Operation Shakti. 1974 first Pokhran. Operation Smiling Buddha. Right. So that is the first time we became a nuclear state. Right. So on the day when we tested for the second time, we made our May 11th as National Technology Day. National Science Day, February 28th, to mark birth anniversary of C.V. Raman. Right. So Raman spectrograph, right? Then Bose wetland. So why this was in news? Recently, government said, okay, there is no threat to this Bose wetland. Okay, this is very important because UPSC generally tends to ask questions on Ramsar sites. Okay, so they'll ask you the Ramsar site location to be matched, or sometimes they'll ask you which is human made or which is natural and all, right? So this Bose wetland is in the city of Bhopal. Bhopal is in Madhya Pradesh, right? It is feeding the water needs of Bhopal, right? From this wetland only, this is getting full, right? If you see, this is upper lake, okay? That is source of water, and this is actually surrounded by One Vihar National Park. This is in the state of Madhya Pradesh, okay? So this you have to keep in mind. They may ask you. So these are the fauna, microphytes. We have phytoplankton, zooplankton. You know, phytoplankton means the very first animals. Okay, so you can say marine organisms like algae, you can say in the marine ecosystems. These are like green grasses in the terrestrial ecosystems. They prepare food by photosynthesis that will be consumed by zooplankton, on which fishes will feed, on which we feed, right? In this way the cycle will be operating. And you know, Ramsar site, it was designated as a Ramsar site in 2002. Okay, what is Ramsar? Ramsar is a convention, okay, to protect wetlands. Wetland is nothing but which will be temporarily or permanently covered with water, seasonally or fully, at least with water depth of 6 meters. Okay, if water is at least with 6 meters depth, okay, then you can call it as a wetland. Anything, even rice paddy field also can be called as a wetland. Okay, so certain wetlands which are having national importance will be recognized first. Once if it is having international importance, then that will be listed under Ramsar sites. Currently, you have 82 Ramsar sites. All those 82 you have to keep in mind. Okay, the location is very important because UPSC already have asked different, almost 2-3 times they have asked Ramsar sites and the location to be matched. Okay, so every day if you keep 5 Ramsar sites, easy you can remember, right? Or otherwise you can go with states also. Or not all states have Ramsar sites. If you go one state today, tomorrow another state. In that way, just remember the locations. It is easy where you can score better, right? Then, so if you see here, Axiom 4 mission, okay? So this mission was mainly to send humans to International Space Station. Who is launching this? SpaceX, okay? Falcon 9 rocket of SpaceX is going to send this mission. So why this is important? Because as part of this mission, two Indians, okay, two Indian astronauts who are also part of Gaganyaan mission, okay, are getting trained to be sent to International Space Station. So what is International Space Station? So if this is the Earth, okay, so around 400 kilometers above the Earth, we have low Earth orbit. Okay, so here we will be having International Space Station. That's like a, you can say, size of a football field. That much big will be there. where in case if the astronauts go to the space and they wanted to explore, they'll be staying there. That's like a hotel where they'll be conducting all the experiments by staying there. Okay, all microgravity experiments and everything will be conducted there. So it's not only one countries, by different countries, by USA, to Europe, in countries like Canada, European countries, Canada. Then we have Russia also there. Okay, so like this, some countries have together built this International Space Station in 1998. Okay, so now India is also trying to build its own space station with the name. This is important for us. SpaceX. Okay, so Indian government or ISRO, you can say, that is trying to build India's own space station by 2035. This is also the goal that Prime Minister has set, at least. Okay. Then if you see, as part of this mission, we are sending some humans to International Space Station. Why this is important for us is two Indians, and if this is done before Gaganyaan mission, this persons will be the second after whom? Rakesh Sharma. Rakesh Sharma is the very first person who was sent into space, not directly by India, but being of Indian origin, he was the very first person to go into space. In 1964 only he went into space, but not from India, but having Indian origin, right? Then if you see here, these are the two persons' names, okay? Prime person is Subhanshu Shukla, and the one is Prashant Balakrishnan Nair, right? So these two are also part of Gaganyaan mission. You know what is Gaganyaan? Human mission to space, right? So India till now didn't send directly humans to space. The very first time we are going to send through Gaganyaan mission. 4 members were selected, and 3 members will be sent to space. For 3 days, they will be staying there, and they'll be conducting experiments, and they'll be brought back. That's the very first time we are sending humans to space. Very ambitious project of ISRO, right? That is very important for your prelims coming examinations, because we are about to send them in 24 or 25, ending 24 or 25 early. So that will be important for your examination, right? Then, so this person will become the second one after Rakesh Sharma, 1964, right? So objectives is they wanted to train here, and when this mission, even Gaganyatri means the persons who are also part of Gaganyaan, okay? So they'll be selected to do scientific research. They'll have the technology also, how to use the technology, because see, it's easy to go there, but if you come back, if you have remembered Kalpana Chawla, what actually happened when she went, okay? She's just to reach the earth in 5 minutes or so, right? At that point of time, because of increase in the temperatures in the cabin, okay, she has lost her life, right? The same thing can happen here also. That is why ISRO is trying to develop a very robust crew escape module in in Gaganyaan mission. Crew escape module means when you're lifting into the space or when you're coming back also, there will be difficulties in the things and all, right? So in any situation also, there will be crew escape module using some escape module. That means if this is a module in which they generally go, okay? So here you will be having the people sitting through, okay? Here you will be having all the engine and all. So once if there is any problem, this gets separated, okay? The rocket will again send back the crew will be sent back, okay? So that means once if they enter into the atmosphere, using the parachute, they will be landing on the earth. In that way, we are trying to ensure that these persons' lives will not be lost, right? That's the main thing. Then this mission is a private mission, okay? But you need to keep in mind, because Indians are going, it is important for us, right? Then International Space Station, it is nothing but a research laboratory, you can call, which is stationed almost 430 kilometers from the Earth's surface in low Earth orbit. Okay, so this is one you have to keep in mind. Normally, it will rotate around the Earth almost once every 90 minutes. That means 16 times in a day it will be rotating around the Earth. Okay, so that is the main thing. And India's space station, as I told you, is FedEx. In 2035, we are aspiring to build this. Okay, then we have Bharatiya Beej Sahkari Samiti Limited. Okay, Beej means what? Seed. Okay, so Sahakari means multi-cooperative, right? So to develop and to conserve seeds of native varieties and all, we have this initiative. So recently, this was informed in the Rajya Sabha. Every time, if you see, agriculture related questions or farmer related questions or seed related questions are quietly asked. Okay, so UPSC is asking on those areas also. Here you need to remember. So recently, this was informed in the Rajya Sabha. Multi-State Cooperative Societies Act of 2002 actually has created this limited. Okay, so these are all the things. Okay, you have farmers organizations, NEFED, Nation Agriculture Federation, National Dairy Development Board. Okay, so like this, these are all partnering to establish this seed. Okay, this was already established. Capital is 250 crores. Okay, this much is the money that was given. Then if you see functions, production, procurement, distribution of quality seeds. That is the main objective of this multi-cooperative. So they also want to promote indigenous natural seeds, right? Hybrid seeds we are having and all. So for that reason, they wanted to promote natural seeds and they wanted to increase the seed replacement also, right? Nodal agency is important. You may get confused with agriculture, but it is Ministry of Cooperation because it is established under Multi-State Cooperative Societies Act. Okay. Then there is a topic of axis of resistance, right? So this term was actually given by George Bush, right? If you see, axis of resistance is one group you can say, or the groups which are aligned with Iran, okay, which are fighting against a common enemy that is USA, right? Axis of resistance means, you know, Iran and US have this dispute from long, right? Iran and other armies like Hezbollah from Lebanon. So these are all, you can say, Arab groups or Islamic groups. Then you have Hamas from Palestine. Please be silent. Houthis from Yemen. So these persons along with Iran, rebel groups you can call in the respective countries who are having Islamic origin. So they are termed as axis of resistance. Okay. So the main objective is they wanted to stop westernization or Western influence or Western involvement in their domestic affairs. Okay. So you know Israel is attacking Hamas. Israel is a ally of USA. So for that reason, Iran is also starting supporting with the help of Hezbollah, Houthis in Yemen and all. They're also starting supporting Hamas and all in this way. Axis of resistance is nothing but these countries. Okay, so you need to keep in mind. So as I have given here, Iranian backed groups. Okay, so this was given by George Bush. Okay, so this idea, axis of evil. Evil according to US is Iran, Iraq, as well as North Korea. These are the enemy countries for USA, right? At the point of time, in that context, he has given, but later on, it has turned this form. Okay, so US and Saudi. Saudi is a Sunni dominated country. All these groups are Shia dominated groups. Okay, so Sunni versus Shia, that internal conflict is also there, right? So they wanted to prevent Israel and US, right, from their influence and their involvement. Then these are the members. So they can ask you which member forms under axis of resistance. Okay, in the prelims and all. Then in India we have Sunni more. Sunni. Okay. So then we have methane mitigator. Okay. So recently it was found one of the bacteria is degrading methane. Okay. So that bacteria name we have given as methano. Methano means methane. Trophs means which generally degrade something and eat as a food. Okay. Autotroph means which prepare their own food. No, same way methanotrophs. So these are the bacteria which are degrading methane. Methane is a greenhouse gas, right? So which is harmful for the environment, which is a short-lived pollutant, but it has a global warming potential also. For that reason, this bacteria is important. So where it is found? It is found in rice fields. In rice field only more methane will be released, right? The same way, wetlands also will release more methane. From there only we found methane-eating bacteria, which is called methanotrophs. They can ask this term simply and ask in which context this particular term has seen in use. Okay, methanotrophs means which is methane-eating bacteria, right? You have to keep in mind. So these bacteria are efficient in oxidizing the methane, which is converting methane into carbon dioxide in water, right? So in that way, it is diluting the methane. One main challenge is it is not able to grow beyond 37 degrees. So you need to control the temperature also. Other advantages is not only controlling methane, it is enhancing the plant growth, promoting earlier harvest and other things. Okay. Then last topic we have is Humayun's tomb. Okay. This is a factual information which you have to keep in mind. For the very first time, India's underground museum was inaugurated. Underground. Okay. So underground museum was first time inaugurated. You can say This is a Humayun's tomb. In Delhi, we have Humayun is the father of Akbar, Mughal ruler, second Mughal ruler after Babur. Babur is the founder of Mughal dynasty, after whom you have Humayun, Humayun, Akbar, Jahangir, then Shah Jahan, Aurangzeb, right? That is the order, right? So Humayun we have. So here you have to keep in mind these terms. Baolis are nothing but wells, traditional water tanks or wells, okay? So certain terms can be asked to, again, you need to remember to test you, these terms can be asked, okay? So this was constructed by his wife, Bega Begum, okay? So this was recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This is in Delhi, okay. Sunken means when the visitors will be watching the museum in underground, right? That is what the term sunken means. So recently this trend also has increased in UPSC. They're asking very first what happened in the first time in India, right? First solar airport, first something which happens for the very first time. They're asking these things. You need to keep in mind. This first sunken museum is this Humayun's tomb in Delhi, right? Tomb means, the place of burial, right? So that's the image, right? So this is all. Okay. If you have any doubts, you can ask. ఇప్పుడు ఇంకే doubts ఏం అడుగుతారు, right? Okay. Online students have so many doubts, I guess. ముందు ఇది ఉండాలి, తర్వాత ఇది